1, 2, 3. All right. So I believe we have successfully passed our test here. Hello and welcome to the first installment of Chuck B TV. I'm your host, Chuck B. So today, what I wanted to do was take you guys into a music project that I have working in in Renoise. And this will get confusing. I'm using Reason and Renoise, but mostly Renoise, which is what you're seeing on the screen right here now, this DAW. And for those of you that don't know a lot about Renoise, Renoise is a DAW similar to like Ableton Live or Bitwig. But the fundamental difference is it's what's called a tracker program. And a tracker program is one that instead of having what's called a piano roll where you see like you have all these blocks and you draw in your notes with that, you get this interface called the tracker interface. And tracker interface, to give you a little history, is kind of in the beginning of electronic music composition is what people would use. It was more text-based. It was more technical. Gives you more fine granular control of the music and everything that you're editing. And so Renoise is kind of the tracker equivalent or tracker kind of answer to something like Ableton Live, right? And give me 1 second here. I'm going to see if I can turn up my own microphone in my headphones so that I can kind of hear myself, which would be real nice. But yeah, so basically what we're going to do here is work on a song in Renoise. Now, I wanted to share this because I thought, one thing that I really like about the tracker interfaces is the heavy use of keyboard-centric workflow. And that's kind of the whole point here is that that's why I've shared my keyboard with you guys on the screen here. Because I wanted to show you what it's like to use a program like Renoise to work on a song, as opposed to something like Ableton or Bitwig, where you're going to use a lot of keyboard shortcuts, but it's not a keyboard-centric workflow, I think is the key difference. And I have been using Renoise for several years. I want to say maybe 7 or 8 at this point. So I'm pretty well versed in the keyboard shortcuts. And I've made a lot of my own custom shortcuts as well. But and I've probably been using Ableton Live for even longer than that. But yeah, you're just never going to get a similar kind of interface in Ableton Live. So before I get too bogged down in talking about everything going on here, what I would like to really do is just kind of jump into what I've got going on here in my Renoise setup. And I do want to limit these videos. I have been doing what's called the Pomodoro technique of 25 minutes of concentration and followed by 5-minute breaks. So I'm going to limit this video to 25 minutes just so we kind of like gives us a little way to stay grounded. I'll start that timer in a minute here. Because it's easy to lose track of time working on music like this. There's always this issue of like how much detailing is too much, how much is enough. And yeah, so I'm going to start the timer as soon as I'm finished talking about exactly what I'm talking about right now. And then we will jump in to just the process of me taking you directly into where I'm at with this song. So to give you a little summary before we jump in, you can see if I lean back here and I point to my hardware synthesizers. Right now I am using all three of the synthesizers that I own in composing this song. The DeepMind, the Neutron, and the No Coast are all the three of the analog synthesizers that I have. So I've set up Renoise to play nicely with those. I do have a couple of software synthesizers, so synthesizers that are just running on the computer itself. Those are all Reason right now. They're VST plugins of Reason. And then I have drums that I'm editing, and that's probably most of where I'm going to be concentrating my energy here on the track. So I think I'm going to start the timer, and we're just going to kind of hop in. This is going to be half a little bit working and half a bit of explanation about kind of what I'm doing and what my thought process is. Again, I plan to keep up this series as we go along. So that being said, okay, boom, we're starting the timer. We're 25 minutes in, got everything set up. Okay. So let's just go through, and right now I've got 16 bars of this song written here. This first one, Loop, was just for you guys. Let's go through and listen, and then I'll bring you into kind of where my thought process is about what I want to do next. Now this is going to sound probably pretty overwhelming. It is a pretty complex track. It's meant to be complex. I mean, that's kind of the music style. But it's actually not. I think the thing to keep in mind is that there are literally 6 instruments going on in the whole track, which is to say there is 3 hardware synthesizers, 2 software synthesizers, and then essentially 1 drum kit that's actually running out of Renoise. So let's just listen, and then we'll talk a little bit more about this. Okay, let's go. Okay, so that's the idea so far. Now, again, I'm kind of like, I want to have to do a tutorial and half actually keep making progress on this song. So I'll bring you into a little bit of my workflow here and kind of give you some of the basics of Renoise as I'm working through it. So the main thing that I've been thinking about is the drums, the breaks. And as you can hear, they're extremely complex and glitchy and all that. And so let's solo the drums here for a second and just play through those. So I guess the first thing that I should talk about is the basics of how Renoise works. So you got all these instruments up in you store your instruments up at the corner, and then here, and then you have up in that top right hand corner. I guess you can't see my mouse, and then you go into the tracker interface and you draw or you program them in, enable the record button, and then you press buttons on the keyboard. So that's me pressing the keyboard, I think. Yeah, you guys can see that. So yeah, it's breakcore. I'm writing breakcore or IDM, whatever you want to call it. And we have this drum track here. And so as this is playing, you'll see a couple different instruments in the corner light up over there. And those are different samplers, different iterations, copies of chopped up breaks, basically. Some of them sometimes will take a sample and stretch it. I'm sorry, that was a little loud. Other times, yeah, you use a couple of different drum loops. And so keep your eye on this upper corner here as we're playing through this again, and you'll start to see all these little orange lights come on over here. So, yeah, what we're kind of doing here, and one of the reasons why Renoise is really powerful is Renoise is really built around its own kind of sampler / instrument engine, and then you can, depending on how you want to program it in, multiple instruments can go into one track. You can do a lot with it. So again, I want to kind of take you into my thought process here, and I do want to get a little done with this song, and I don't know if I will end up making progress on it while we're talking. But yeah, so let's go listen, I guess, now that we've heard the break, let's just go listen to all the synthesizers and see if you can follow along with the different sounds coming out. I think without the drums, it won't sound as overwhelming. So if you look over to the left here, and I guess I think it's called a pattern sequencer, you can see where we draw in these patterns here, or where you kind of organize the blocks. And again, this is a little bit different from how you're used to seeing something like Bitwig or Ableton. You would arrange what are called clips on a timeline. This is kind of the equivalent, except the difference here is that you essentially have this linked list of clips, and these would be your clips, and instead of them kind of existing on like a flat linear time scale, even though this is linear, these clips essentially all butt up against one another. And so you'd actually define the length of each one of these clips up in the corner, up right in this by where it says the Deep Mind channel strip, right up here, where it says 72 there. And that's actually how long each one of these patterns is. It's going to be 72 lines. So the way that you arrange things in Renoise is that it will always go from, well, you've got pattern 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. So you'll watch, if I play this, you'll see it play through. And then if you watch over here, and I'll try to click it as it goes through, you can see the actual, where the synthesizers are composed in. So right at the beginning, we have the Deep Mind, which is that bass sound. We have the Neutron, which is our Acid 303 synth. And then we have the No Coast, which is our first lead. And you'll have all three of those come in at the same time. And then we have this kind of phrasing that happens between the No Coast and then the first two software synths, where it goes da 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 da, and it like, okay, you'll see. Just listen and watch. Oh, we have to unmute. We have these grouped together here. Oh, I didn't want to change that color. Okay. So those are all kind of, in terms of composition, that's kind of a call and answer, round robin kind of thing. And the meanwhile, you have the bass, kind of two bass sounds doing whatever they really want to on their own over here. Again, we'll mute the three that we just heard. And then, so you can see where I've deactivated the clips, where sometimes you draw it in and you say, I don't want it to come in at that time. Okay, so if we play all the synths together, then maybe now you can see that there's really 5 synthesizers, so 5 melodic instruments, you know, everything that's not the drums. That's all there is, right? So, oops, play it again. All right, so again, just let's go back and like hear it all together. So let's go back to the drums for a second. And again, this has ended up turning into a tutorial. I kind of thought, oh, I'll just keep working on this and stream it, but it's proved a little bit too tempting having a microphone here and knowing that most people who watch this are not really going to know about how Renoise works. And even the people that know, I think, would probably be interested in my process. So yeah, let's go back and concentrate on the drums here. So in this track right here where it says break. So, okay, let's scroll up and look. Now, this single feature is like the main draw to Renoise, right? For genres like breakcore, IDM, things like that, because as you can see, the notes so I guess we'd have to explain a little bit about this. Is called the note column right here, and then there's columns in which you write the note. So C3 is C at octave 3. This little 04 right here is instrument number 4. That's how you can have multiple different instruments kind of take turns going into a track. That 7F is going to be, I believe, the velocity. Let's turn that down. Okay, yeah, so that's going to be the velocity. The velocity is, you know, the loudness of the note, essentially. And so there's a column where you can actually type in the velocity and the panning. Now, you'll maybe, if you're not as familiar with computers, you'll see 7F and you'll think, what's that? That's hex, right? That's another thing about Renoise. A lot of it is in hex numbering, hexadecimal numbering, which is a base 16 number system. I'm not going to open that can of worms right now. That's a little bit of computer science kind of thing if you want to look it up on your own. Long story short, instead of, you know, you having a base 10 number system where, you know, we're used to, as soon as you get to 9, it rolls over, and then you add a 1 to the left, and that's how you get 10. It's a base 16 number system in which A, B, C, D, and E, and F extend it out to 16. So, long story short, you're going to need to know that if you want to use Renoise. Otherwise, don't worry about it. Okay. So, now, again, this is the reason why the workflow in Renoise gets really cool is because we can do all this on the laptop, or I'm sorry, not on the laptop, but on the keyboard here, right? So I've got tons of keyboard shortcuts. A lot of them are pretty default. Some of them are pretty set up. At some point, I guess I will actually go ahead and share my keyboard mapping, as it's just a completely essential part of my workflow. The fact that I get to do all this editing, not 100%, but the majority of it on the keyboard here. So, yeah, let's slow down. Now, you have to bear with me here too, as I continue to learn alongside you guys. Okay, yeah. So we can play this. One of the nice things about Renoise 2 is we can play this line by line, so we can really slow down what each one of these lines is doing, right? Okay. So you can see here this one line that's highlighted that is going along with my mouse here. If I press the enter button, it plays that one line, and I can hold down enter and it'll slowly play through everything. So if I hold that down, okay. So then you can start to see that these are just, you know, in here, that these are just different drum samples. Kick drum, I think it's another kick. Yep, another kick. That's a little hi-hat. I'm gonna go ahead and do a little correction here to move that to where it needs to be. go ahead. Cut and paste is totally typical, like you would expect. Okay, and then let's see. This is a snare, I think. Yeah, and so if you look again up in the instrument corner here, where it says instrument 05, or is it 05? I guess we're playing again. This is we're playing off a couple different instruments here. This is one of the keys, and you'll see that as we go further along in the series, why that's necessary or why that's a big advantage. It's not necessary, but it's a big interesting point about what we have kind of going on here. Okay, I stopped my timer by accident, but we'll just keep going. We'll go over a little bit. Okay, so let's go back, and yeah, so you start to be able to break it down and hear how these are just different little drum noises. And I gotta make a little correction here too. I'm not sure how exactly this one got off, but okay. Okay, so now, and we're looping, I think it was, no, it's this button up here. I'll click it a couple times so you can see it. We want to turn that off. That's why that is making us loop this pattern here. Okay. Okay, and then if we go to the top of this pattern, we press enter. We're just getting this stretched out snare that I won't play. I know this is a little bit loud. And that's because there's a volume control in here, and then there's a volume control, you know, a traditional mixer view, which I have to go back and reattach the mixer so you can see it on here. Okay, yeah. And this is where if we play it through, you see the, you know. Okay. All right, so let's go back. Yeah, I want to be able to show a little bit about why I really like Renoise. I think this is a good place to start. Now, another thing that's kind of essential to the workflow in Renoise is that you can loop parts of the patterns, and there's like 3 different loop controls, which is kind of crazy. I don't ever really use this one up here. It does almost the exact same thing as this gray button, which I'm going to click a few times, and hopefully you see that. And you can select multiple patterns here, and the gray area will loop, right? That you see, like if I let this play, once it gets to the end of pattern 5, it goes right back to 2. Okay. So that's one way to loop. And then the other one is called the block loop, and that's what we're going to use right now. Okay. And I'm going to hit, I guess I have it mapped to this enter, this number pad enter button. And the other thing is that it's this button up in the top left-hand corner with this fraction next to it. And that fraction is the fraction of the actual block size that's looping, which is 1/3, right? Because right now we're writing this song in 3/4. You know, typical music, dance music is 4/4. For whatever reason, this was in 3/4. I got inspired. I'm working in Renoise at what's called 24 lines per beat. And that's kind of exactly what it sounds like. Each one of these lines, there's 24 of them in each beat, and we're at 120 beats per minute. And I do 24 lines per beat because, you know, if you have a multiple of 4, like you did 8 lines per beat, then if you wanted to do triplets, it would be trickier. It's really up to you. Whatever you want to do is really up to you in that sense, because, you know, there's other ways to do it. There's other techniques if you wanted to do triplets. But in my circumstance, that's just, I've gotten used to working in like 12 or 24 lines per beat. So, okay. Let me take you into one of the cooler features of Renoise here. Okay, so you see this little section here. We've turned on our block loop right here. And then if I hit play, we're just going to loop in this last part of this pattern. Okay, we get that kind of, that buzzy, very kind of Aphex Twin, Venetian snares, IDM roll, right? Okay, and the way that we're doing this is if we go down, you see this B2 right here. So that's, again, our note on instrument number 4, right? And obviously that's the buzz, right? That's the roll. If I hit enter at the bottom one, it plays the full thing. Okay. Now, again, we have these columns here for panning and for velocity. And one of the things that's so great about Renoise is that you can use keyboard shortcuts to edit and interpolate between both these things. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I want to recreate exactly what we're seeing here from scratch. So I'm going to delete this block. I'm going to get a little piece of paper here just to write this out for my own sake, and then show you kind of the keyboard flow for how, just drop that one, we'll get another one, for how we actually end up doing this with keyboard shortcuts. Okay, so it's B2, and then we're going to start velocity. We're going to say from 0F to 7F. And I just want to say thanks to everyone who's actually still watching at this point. I know that this probably sounds like complete like alien turbo confabulator, you know, jargon nonsense. I swear it's actually means something, and the deeper down, closer to this rabbit hole you are, or what wish to get, the more you'll understand. Okay, so let me go back and do the workflow here. Okay, so if I delete all this, right, we want to recreate that little part from scratch. Now we know that B2 here is, and we'll even start that one. Okay, we'll delete that. Okay, so B2, we have that memorized. And again, this is something I'm just doing in the moment when I'm actually working on it, but I want to show you exactly what you need to do to kind of like understand where I'm coming from. Okay, so the first thing to know is if you're going to add a note into your composition here, you got to make sure that whichever, the right instrument that you want to use is selected. Okay, so that's going to be up in the instrument selector up in the corner here. Okay, so that was instrument number 4, and I've got it mapped. I don't know if it's default. I think it is, the plus and minus on the number pad to being up and down through the instruments. Okay, so you can see, okay, so I've got that. And now, as long as you don't see this red rectangle around your editor, and that's on when you have the record button on, you can go ahead and you can play. There's like 2 pianos mapped out on the keyboard of Renoise. And you'll see me playing that a lot. So this is, again, an essential part of the workflow, is that you can just play around with that right now and it won't change your composition. It won't add any notes in here, right? Okay, so what I want to do is when I want to add notes in, I'm going to press, I'm going to click the record button up here, or I'm going to press I have it mapped to this period or delete key on the number pad. Okay, so that is, if I turn that on and I start pressing notes, you see it starts adding notes, right? But there's a big problem, is we don't want the notes to jump down like that. So that's where what's called the edit step comes in. And the edit step is how many steps down the editor jumps once you put a new note in. Now, again, this is a huge part of my workflow in Renoise, is that I have all the number keys on the number pad mapped to different edit steps. And so if you look down here, hopefully you can see that right down underneath the pattern arranger, here's this number kind of going crazy. I'm doing that with the mouse right now, but you'll see as I press the number pad buttons, it jumps, it goes 1, 2, 3, or 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 9, 12, 18, 24. And so that's so in my workflow with my left hand, I'm triggering the samples, but with my right hand, I can turn editing on and off, and then I can also change the number at which the editor jumps down when I start putting notes in, all right? So in order to do what we wanted to do, which was fill all these lines, we would want an edit step of 1, right? If we do an edit step of 0 and I turn the editing on, you'll see that I start to put numbers in, but it doesn't move, right? If I do edit step of 1 like we want, you see it starts to jumps me down one line every time. And if you do an edit step of 2, starts to jump down 2. You see where this is going here? So do an edit step of 6. There we go. So now the numbers that I have pre-programmed into here are, these are commonly used divisions for if we've got 24 lines per beat. 24 would be 1 beat. 18 would be, a dotted eighth note, I guess. 12 would be half a beat, aka eighth note. 9 would be a dotted 16th note. 16 would be, 6 would be 16th note. I believe, right? Because 6 times 4 is 24. Yeah, okay. So, that's the logic. This is essential to my workflow. And at some point when I can actually stop talking about what I'm doing and just get in the flow on here, you'll start to see that really jump around. I'll be, doing some more probably tutorials in the future and then referencing this one. So, this is good to know. So again, let's get back to our focus here, which is that we want to put in B number 2, just like we saw it before, every line, and then we want to draw in these rolls. Okay. So, let's set our edit step to 1. Or actually, let's set it to 0 right now so we can make sure we're on the right note. Okay, and I turn editing on. And I start pressing notes. C notes set up here. We see immediately that our B, okay, that's what we wanted, but we wanted B number 2. We need to go down an octave. All right, so I have ours. I think this is, again, a default mapping is the slash and the multiply up here are the octave shift buttons. And you can see up towards the center of the top here, that octave number changing as I press those. So you set octave to 2, and I press B. Okay, now we have B2 on 04 right there. Great. Okay. And we want to fill in a bunch of those. So I press 2, edit step 2. Okay, so now I've got all these in here, right? I'm super happy. I'm pretty sure this gap of 2 was here. We're just going to have to assume it was. Now we have them all at this 7F velocity. If we play it, not exactly what we want. We want the volume to slowly come up on there, okay? So this is, again, a really cool trick. So in order to in order to do this, we want to do what's called a velocity ramp, where we have the velocity go from very small to very high to create that buzz up. Not just a buzz, but the buzz where the volume comes up. We're coming in at about 3 minutes here, so I'm going to finish this up. And then we're going to stop the tutorial. So, okay, first thing that we want to do is delete all these 7 Fs out of here. Now, we can't really select it just by clicking, so we're going to hold Alt and then click. And then you can see the Alt is the granular select. It's going to let us select very tiny bits, which is to say like one column instead of this whole column note pan group thing here. Take that, select it, and then we're going to hit, I think there's like, I can do like clear or something like that, but I'm just going to do Command X and cut it. Okay, cool. Now we said we want our velocity to go from 0F to 7F. Okay, so a couple other little things. Another tip is that if we're typing stuff in and we don't want to jump by our edit step, we hold shift and we say 0, because if I type a 0, we want 0F for the first one. If I type 0, then it jumps down. We don't want that. I hold shift and I say 0F. Okay, cool. And then I'm just going to go ahead again, select that and cut it. Okay, now this is where the magic happens, just about. So I'm going to go down to our last one here, and I'm going to hold shift and type in 7F. And the reason why I'm going to do this is because I'm going to hold Alt and Shift again. I'm going to go in between the two, and then I'm going to use a magic little keyboard shortcut, Command I, which is interpolate. So this is a really cool feature of Renoise where it's going to fill in the values between whatever is the beginning of the selection and the end. So now you can hear a little bit more of that ramp up, right? Okay, and now we're going to do the pan. So in the panning column, we wanted to go from 2, 0, which is going to be like 0, 0 would be, I think, all the way left, and then 8, 0 is all the way right. And so I had 2 and up to 4 to kind of give this effect of it comes slightly to the left into the center of the pan, right? Okay. And then, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to type 2, 0, 4, 0, and then I'm going to hold Alt and Shift, and I do a granular select all the way down, and then I'm going to hit Command I. Oop, sorry, I hit the microphone there. Okay. Now, you might not fully be able to hear that at home, that it's actually doing a pan across now, but it is, and that's going to come out in the final composition. So one thing I would keep in mind, I'm going to let this play back one more time that we're going to celebrate like the end. I'm going to play it back once just the drums and then once with the full composition. But yeah, so now that you know a little bit more about how all these numbers get typed in, about how you're jumping between these different, you know, edit steps. You see, these are all edit steps of 6, right? Okay, so there's our timer. Just think about, yeah, those processes and how they occur and how they might, you know, end up, how that really has a huge difference in my workflow and then in the resulting composition of how I actually do the thing here. So I'm going to let it play through the drum loop one more time, and then I'm going to play through the whole thing one more time, and then we're going to sign off. Yeah, so here we go. Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, there we go, guys. Thanks for watching. This was kind of ended up being an impromptu intro to Renoise. I do need to keep working on this song, like as an actual not tutorial, but again, it was a little bit too tempting with the microphone here. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw, do the obvious, like and subscribe. And we will be back with more tutorials. So awesome. Thanks again. All right. Take care. And I am signing off.